Merry Christmas and welcome to another edition of Weekly NFL Picks on Riley's Redzone. I am indeed recording this on Christmas technically as it stands, so hope that you have a great holiday if you are watching on Christmas morning, or if you're watching it for the games later in the weekend. Hope you had a great season earlier in the week. But with all that being said, we are almost to the end of the NFL regular season. Only 2 weeks left to go, and I'm excited this week. We're keeping it going with my selections as well as another pair of guest pickers. So if you're new to the channel, every single week I predict straight up who will win each NFL game. I will mention spreads to get an idea of who's the favorite in the matchup, but bottom line, we just pick who wins, and we hope to have the best record as possible. So quickly recapping last week, I had an all right week. I went 11-5. Adding to the 150 wins total I have on the season. But our guest pickers, we had a pretty solid performance from Pierce. Going off of my spreadsheet that I keep track of everything, he got the first 12 games correct in a row, which is ridiculous by itself. Then unfortunately caught 3 straight losses, but did close it out with the Packers shutout that he did predict. So 13-3 is what he went. So he's right up there in the mix of the top guest pickers we've had. And then we had Taylor, who went 9-7, so still above 500 for him also. But looking to add to their totals this week, we have Nick and Jack, who have sent me their selections for these games of this week, and so we'll see who comes out on top there as they add their name to the list. And then last week of the season, I'm going to try to get everybody that picked throughout the season, at least as many as possible, to rejoin, and then we'll go whoever has the best winning percentage by the end can take the championship. So after all of that, we're going to jump into what this week will be. We got games today, we got games later in the weekend. There's so much to break down, but let's just enjoy what is in store. So starting with the Chiefs and the Steelers, Chiefs are able to get it done last week. They get it there, and Mahomes is fine health-wise. The Steelers are just, I think they're starting to show that they are maybe not quite what their record shows, and we maybe knew that. I think this is going to be a solid game on Christmas here. The Steelers are going to put up a great defensive fight. This is 2 teams that I think maybe have a little bit more wins than they truly are, as good of a football team as they really are. With that, I'm going to go with the Chiefs as they have Patrick Mahomes, and their offense is going to play well enough. But they won a lot of games in luck, but they are at least a decent football team. So I'm going to go with Kansas City. Nick joins me on that, but Jack goes with the upset pick in the Steelers. So that's an upset to start out the selections for Jack there. And as we move to the next game on Christmas Day, the Ravens and the Texans, we have a little bit of a similar story. The Ravens are, I think, a little underrated at this point. They're getting some respect again, but yeah, they have maybe some more losses than some other teams at the top, but they are a top 5 football team, in my opinion, right now in the National Football League, and I would not want to mess with them come to playoffs, which we're getting really close to. And the Texans, I feel like, have not quite been what they've wanted to be all season, but they are starting to maybe at least have a potential chance if they can play things right and really still be in the mix for the AFC. But in this matchup, as 5-point favorites, I'm going to go with Baltimore. Jack agrees with me on that one, but it's Nick who takes the upset of the Texans there on a Christmas Day matchup. Then we move ahead to the Seahawks and the Bears. Seahawks lose a nail-biter against the Vikings. They played at least an all-right game. Geno did turn it over a little bit. That, unfortunately for them in the end, cost them the game. And the Bears just can't do anything against anybody, it seems, at this point on the season. You're just looking to see a little bit of development from Caleb Williams. It's really all you need from the rest of the season. Otherwise, you can throw in the towel. I think the Seahawks, after that loss, are really going to want to try to stay in the playoff hunt. And so with that, I like Seattle as 3.5-point favorites, and so do both of the guest pickers. We have a sweep there of Seattle getting the W. Then the Chargers and the Patriots. The Chargers get that nice victory against the Broncos last week. And I truly am a believer that they have a strong roster. Jim Harbaugh has brought in a culture that is going to win football games. But the Patriots are sneaky. I've been kind of on their hype train, it feels like, the last few weeks. I couldn't quite take them against the Bills last week because I thought that'd be ridiculous. But they did even get off to a good start that they could have potentially made something go. But weren't able to do so, but they're really seeing good play from Drake May, and that's what you were really looking for going into the rest of this season. So with that, I'm going to roll the dice here I need to take some upset picks as they're going to happen each week, and just taking the favorites is not going to let you go undefeated, and I'm swinging for the fences. I like New England in an upset pick here, although both the guest pickers both think that the Chargers are going to be victorious in that one, so that should be a fun one to watch. Broncos, Bengals. We briefly just mentioned the Broncos. That's who the Chargers played. Bo Nix is solid as a quarterback. And the Broncos still look like a good football team. But I'm telling you, I'm feeling a little bit of momentum from this Bengals squad. I've been talking all year. If they could just actually put this defense together. And I still don't necessarily think that they will be able to do that. But I think that they are having enough competency that they can win some football games down the stretch. Honestly, I still think there's a shot they could win out and even potentially make the playoffs, especially if they can knock out one of the biggest challenges right now, which would be the Broncos. I like Cincinnati. So do both Jack and Nick. And so we have ourselves a sweep of the Bengals. That's a few weeks in a row now, I believe, that we've had some Bengals picks so far. And, sweeping the standings. Cardinals-Rams maybe is one of the most interesting games of the week. The Cardinals, what's going on? They're going up, down, in mid-season. It felt like they were maybe going to be in possession of the NFC West, and then they lose it. The Rams, on paper, should not be as good as they are, but they just get it done, and they're continuing to do so. For that reason, maybe should look at the Cardinals here, but as 6-point favorites, I just have a big enough gap that I'm going to go with the home team Rams, that they're really starting to get hot, and I wouldn't want to match up against them if I'm an NFC team, but I'm going to go with Los Angeles. Nick agrees with me. Jack goes with the Cardinals upset. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little scared of that one. I think that could be a Cardinals dub, but I'll take the Rams. Cowboys, Eagles. The Cowboys apparently just want to actually play football when there's nothing on the line. They're eliminated from the playoffs, and they've won now a couple in a row, and so Cooper Rush has at least been pretty competent at quarterback, and there's some momentum there. But the Eagles, after losing last week against the Commanders, I think are going to be out for a win. And so with that, I'm going to go with Philadelphia. They're 9.5-point favorites. It's a sweep there. All three of us think the Eagles will bounce back. And, although the 1 seed is technically within reach, but really difficult, I still think they're going to play hard football, and the Eagles could control that one. Panthers, Bucks. This is an interesting one because the Panthers finally deliver with a win over the Cardinals last week in overtime, but they just haven't quite put the nail on the head most of the times, even though Bryce Young has really started to bounce back. Meanwhile, the Bucks, same thing. They couldn't get it done against the Cowboys, but they've been there a lot this season. I like the Panthers a lot, and they're going to be, I think, a little bit more of a dark horse in the future now that Bryce Young is getting his confidence back. But I like a bounce back for Tampa Bay here. They're 8-point favorites, but with that, we have 2 guests here who think that they're going to get upset by the Panthers. So Carolina is who Nick and Jack both go with there. That's an interesting one to watch for sure. Jets and Bills. The Jets, I think, at least at a point, had an opportunity in last week's game against the Rams, but they couldn't quite do it. The Bills are a wagon of a football team right now. I'm going to go with Buffalo. They're 10-point favorites. It's a sweep here. The Jets have let me down a lot, and that means they're probably going to win this week because they just do the opposite, whatever I think is going to happen. I had some faith in them beating the Rams last week, weren't able to do it. So I'll go with Buffalo, and that's a sweep there. I feel like it's once again just such a favorite that I'm going to go with the easy pick, but maybe for that reason it could get dicey. Colts, Giants. Bottom line, whoever the Giants are playing, you kind of got to pick against them right now. It's a tough sentence to say, but that's just the kind of cold, hard truth right now. It's not that I think the Colts are particularly strong, but overall the Giants are just not great. And the Colts, at least with Anthony Richardson, do have a little bit of momentum. I'm going to take the Colts. That's a sweep as well from the fellas here. That's just plain as day, I guess, what it is. Raiders, Saints, back-to-back weeks, we get tricky games with the Raiders. They play the Jaguars last week. I should say tricky because they're playing another team that's not very good at football right now. And that's what it is with the Saints. They just got shut out by the Packers. That is tough. Meanwhile, the Raiders pick up a dub, in my opinion, just because they played a team that maybe wasn't as strong. I don't think that the Raiders are really a powerhouse, but I like a little bounce back here for the Saints. They're 1.5 point favorites. I'm not super confident in them, but I just think 2 wins in a row would be a bit of a reach for Las Vegas, I guess. So I'll take the Saints here. So does Nick, but we have Jack on the upset train of the Raiders in that matchup for what is kind of a bottom of the barrel showdown. And speaking of bottom of the barrel showdown, let's go to the AFC South with the Titans and the Jaguars, who we just mentioned. Titans are flipping to Mason Rudolph as of late, and that is what it is. And the Jaguars have Mac Jones. It's the most mid-quarterback battle duel of maybe the century. So with that, it's kind of a flip of a coin. I just think that the Titans are not as good as, they're worse than the Jaguars are being bad. I mean, they're both not good, but I'm going to go with the Jaguars here. We have ourselves a sweep. I think after narrowly playing it close last week, I think they actually get it done this week at home against the Titans. I think that will be an opportunity for them to do so. Dolphins-Browns. Dolphins beat the Niners. I think I learned more that the Niners are just, they're cooked. The Dolphins are a force potentially offensively, but they're playing the Browns here. The Browns don't have a lot going for them. Their defense is okay. It should have probably been better this season. And their offense particularly has nothing to go with. But for that reason, I think it's going to be a bounce back for Cleveland. If you're new to the channel and you haven't caught a theme, I am a huge believer in bounce backs, that things just even out. Whether we're talking players, teams, win streaks, losses streaks. So I'm going to go with the Browns here as the 6.5 point underdog. That they are. But I think that the dog pound is going to show up and perhaps put on a show. So give me that upset pick, which is dicey, as we have both Nick and Jack going with the Dolphins in that matchup as the favorite. That is the logical choice, but I'm taking a little bit of a chance here. And then we have Packers-Vikings. This is going to be a great game in the NFC North. Flex to a 3:25 Central Time showdown. So let's talk about these teams, because these are two teams. I had to expand when I'm doing my rankings each week. I think there are 7 teams right now that legit could win the Super Bowl. And the Packers kind of over the last few weeks were in the tier right below that, but they have pushed themselves into that last spot on that top tier. They are a top 7 team guaranteed, and they legit have a chance because of the way Jordan Love's playing. Especially, I get the meme of Toyota-thons going on, and whenever that is, apparently he's pretty good, maybe even undefeated. I know this year, I think since, but they're really, really good. The Vikings somehow are in position that they could get the 1 seed if they win out, which is crazy. And I know I said they lose last week, and they didn't. I truly think this Vikings team is a contender, and I'm probably, like, spoiler alert potentially, I'm probably going to pick them against the Lions next week. I really think that they'll get the best of Detroit next time. But I think this is a dicey one. And for Minnesota, I actually think it would benefit them get kicked one more time before getting too comfortable. Otherwise, they are truly just a powerhouse. So I'm likely to pick the Vikings against the Packers in the playoffs, but for the regular season purposes, and because it's still Toyota-thon, I'm going to go with Green Bay as a 1.5 point underdogs in this matchup. That's where Jack goes as well. Nick goes with the Vikings. I don't want to, and I know it keeps sounding like I undersell the Vikings, but when the playoffs start is when I actually think they're going to turn it up a little bit. But for right now, Green Bay's on a heater. So I'm going to go with the Packers. Falcons-Commanders. The Falcons are in the mix for even the division or the wild card with Michael Penix Jr. at quarterback. I mean, that is crazy. But Jaden Daniels is a man in himself at quarterback for the Commanders, and after a huge win last week against the Eagles, I think they keep it going. I think it's going to be a little bit harder game for Penix. I have belief in him, but on the road, as opposed to being at home in a big-time matchup, I'm going to go with Washington here. And so that's where both the other fellows go with as well. That's a sweep, but we're all going Washington in that matchup. And then let's close it out with the Lions and the 49ers. I talked about it earlier. I think that the 49ers, I knew they were banged up, but they're also just not quite the same this year. Detroit, I don't think is the same since being banged up with their players, but I'm going to go with Detroit in this matchup as the safe choice. They're 3.5 point favorites. I guess it's interesting with if the Niners were to take down the Lions, how that would manage for the Vikings, because then it would come down to that last week, I think, anyways, with that. And that would be an interesting watch. So that game could be of note to keep an eye out. But that's going to do it for the pick segment. Quick recap of the fantasy league. It's still going. Against all odds, I am in the championship game. And so, no, not scripted, but ridiculous. I went 500 in the regular season, and my fellas decided to turn it up. So let's talk about why not give some light to the championship teams that are here. Let's start with the showdown of myself. I am starting Justin Herbert at quarterback. I picked him up less than a week ago, and he got me 21 points in last week's game against the team that he was previously on, and I'm going to roll him out there again this week. Then I've got Breece Hall, Kyron Williams, DJ Moore, Nico Collins, Jonnu Smith, Tyrone Tracy, and I'm going to start TJ Hawkinson in my other flex spot with Jake Elliott and the Eagles defense combo for my specials there. That is my team. This is a dynasty league, so you had to manage a little bit of your future as well as your present. And, on the bench, I did pick up Michael Penix last week. I'm just stashing him. I also have CJ Stroud, which is a great get, but not starting. But I've got a lot of guys on my bench that are out. Between Marshawn Lloyd, Trey Benson, Zach Charbonnet, Jay Coker's had injuries, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Deontay Johnson now is on the Texans, Theo Johnson's on injured reserve, Cade Otton was out this past week for the Bucks, and then I still have Rashee Rice and Dak Prescott on my injured reserve. I'm not going to lie, until this moment, I forgot I have Dak. I'm going to be able to trade a quarterback for somebody, perhaps. So that is interesting to see there. But I'm going up against Max. So Charlie went 12-2 in the regular season and was finally struck down in the playoffs by Max, who put up 151 points. He has Lamar Jackson, Chuba Hubbard, James Cook, Mike Evans, Terry McLaurin, Kyle Pitts, Cortland Sutton, and James Conner, with Jake Moody in the Niners defense in his lineup. So we're both going with the same kicker defense team combo. Done some stars on his bench. He's got Baker Mayfield, Daniel Jones, Bryce Young, Raheem Mostert. He has Christian McCaffrey for the future. That's going to be great for him. He still has Khalil Shakir and Zay Flowers, who he has on his bench. That's a great team, as well as Brandon Cooks, Pratt Freiermuth, and the Broncos defense. So that's for the title, and we'll see if I can somehow pull that out. That would be kind of crazy. But then lastly, we have as well a race for who is last place, and you don't want to be there, as we are going to have rewards and punishments here for the loser, and it's going to come down to Matthew and Andrew, so you don't want to lose that matchup, otherwise they are in the toilet bowl. So that will do it for this week's election. As stated at the beginning of the video, I hope you either have a great Christmas or had it, and with everything going on, just hope you have a good end of your 2024 with what's going to be there. We got one more week of the regular season. It should be fun. I'm going to try to get everyone back next week, and then after that we'll have probably a playoff predictions video and see what's next after that. But for now, I'm Riley's Red Zone, signing off for now, and we'll see you in the next one.